Hello everyone, my name is Kotetsu4, and I'm dressed as my avatar today for consistency. In my Purim video, I said I would make a follow-up Easter video to explain how the death and resurrection of Jesus connects to the Book of Esther, the Day of Atonement, and the fall of man. But after thinking about it, I feel like these connections are pretty obvious. If you haven't seen the Purim video, you can go ahead and watch that one first. We talked about how Esther's plot to save the Jews and the high priest's actions on the Day of Atonement both accomplish, in essence, the same thing, the salvation in some way of God's people. And Jesus' sacrifice was, of course, for the same purpose on a more eternal scale. I find it ironic that the success of Esther and the high priest was marked by them not dying during their encounter with the king, while Jesus succeeds by dying at the hands of humans, although the king does resurrect him in the end. Jesus also models the antithesis of Adam. Where Adam sought to claim godhood and failed, Jesus, despite being God, humbled himself and therefore was exalted. There's also another part of the Day of Atonement that we didn't cover in the last video, and that's the part about the two goats. The high priest casts lots to pick one to sacrifice and one to be released into the wild carrying Israel's sins. I would love to make a direct parallel between this and the account of the two Jesuses, the Messiah who died and Barabbas who was released, but the link is not so direct. After all, Barabbas didn't carry the sins of the world, so it seems Jesus takes the place of both goats? So this is all well and good, but I have a problem. Easter doesn't take place on the Day of Atonement. That's not when Christ was resurrected, not even near it. The holiday that so clearly coincides with Jesus' sacrifice doesn't actually line up with it chronologically. Instead, Jesus was resurrected on the Day of First Fruits, the Sunday following the first day of Passover, which is 7 weeks before Pentecost. Okay, I guess that's more related holidays. And sure, I can see how Passover, celebration of Israel's liberation from Egypt, could parallel humanity's liberation from sin, but again, the resurrection doesn't happen on the first day of Passover. I think we should take a closer look at what the Day of First Fruits is all about. According to Deuteronomy chapter 26, there's a special declaration that's to be made when bringing the first fruits to the high priest. And I recognize that this passage may not necessarily be talking about the annual Day of First Fruits, but hear me out. The person bringing the first fruits says to the priest that they have come into the land that God promised. Furthermore, they must recite Israel's history before God, that their forefather was a wandering Aramaean whose descendants were enslaved in Egypt, and God freed them and brought them to the Promised Land. This person is acknowledging something very important. God has finally fulfilled his promise. He has brought Israel to the land that he promised hundreds of years prior to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and eliminated all their enemies. This is the day that the forefathers longed for and never saw. This day is to be commemorated with the giving of first fruits. Even if it's not the annual Day of First Fruits, that day also celebrates the faithfulness of God in bringing the barley harvest. But just because there's a barley harvest doesn't mean there's not more to come. 7 weeks later is the wheat harvest, Pentecost. And perhaps you can see where I'm going with this. What was the resurrection of Jesus if not the fulfillment of God's biggest promise? The day that confirmed that the Messiah had come and that death would not win. A day that, according to Jesus himself, Abraham rejoiced at the thought of, much like he waited for the day that his descendants would inherit the Promised Land. But just because the resurrection happened doesn't mean that there wasn't more to come. 7 weeks later, there was another mass resurrection of sorts on Pentecost and the formation of the church. So on Easter, not only do we celebrate God keeping his promises, but we acknowledge that he will keep his promises in the future. It's a concept that goes beyond just that of atonement. That is why the resurrection happened on First Fruits instead of Yom Kippur. And that is something that I think we should keep in mind with us this Easter.
Hello again, this is Wizard, the part of Kotetsu4 who deleted Aaron's stash of emulated video games. She's still a little bit resentful of that. We have much more in store for you this year, so if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you want to see more, do subscribe. We shall see you very soon.